In this video, we are going to be talking about how to save our children. After the Epstein files have now been released and a lot of people are learning about what is really going on with all of the missing children out there in the world, people are asking for practical ways of how we can help these children. So we are going to talk about that today. I first want to acknowledge that I have been having some technical difficulties making these last two videos. I'm obviously going to have to check the audio after I finish recording, but everything seems to be in working order. But for some reason, my audio did not work for the last video, so it was very low, which is obviously very frustrating, but I could have reshot the video, I guess, but that would have been very time consuming, and it may not have had the same energy within it because I was in a certain energy when I was making it. So that's why I chose not to reshoot the video. But yeah, so that audio didn't work. And then I've been having technical difficulties today for this video. And it's funny because while I'm trying to fix all this stuff, there was a part of me that was like, you know what, I just don't even feel like shooting a video this week anyway. And I caught myself because I was getting frustrated with the technical issues that it almost stopped me from making this video. So I just want to acknowledge that because that's how darker energy works. Is it tries to use your own frustrations, your own anger and resentment, all of the negative energy that you have, that you produce yourself, and it tries to use it against you so that you are not as useful for the greater mission. And that was just a perfect example because it almost got me. But yeah, we're here, we're shooting this video, and I'm going to make sure that the audio is working well. It's obviously time for me to invest in better equipment. So I think it's just that time. So anyway, thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for your patience. I really appreciate you guys. I truly feel like we're all on a team for the greater mission of humanity. So thank you. Okay, so as you know, I try to meditate on information and then I share that with you. So if it resonates, great, and if not, that's totally fine. This is not information that I looked up or studied or anything like that. This is just information that just kind of came to me. So the first thing I wanted to ask was, what is the condition of these children at this time? And the children collectively, it's scattered. It's on a huge spectrum. And that was what this particular meditation really tried to hammer into my brain, is that yes, there are children that are being, enslaved essentially. And the focus right now is the Epstein files and how there are politicians and celebrities that are involved with hurting children. Okay, that is the focus right now. However, the bigger problem is significantly more systemic than that. This is not isolated to Hollywood or to that particular island. There are actually many islands. I don't remember the book, but there was a book written in England, I think, or it takes place in England maybe, but it is about a wealthy politician who owns an island where he takes boys. And apparently this book is actually what inspired the story of Pinocchio. And that book is no longer available. I tried looking for it when I learned about this particular book. I tried to look for it and you can't buy it. I will try to remember the book, and if I remember it, then I'll put it in the video. But anyway, lots of people involved. But it comes to it being significantly more closer to home than that. And so there is a very good chance that you yourself know somebody personally who has either committed a crime against a child or is, has pedophilia, right, tendencies, or there is a good chance that there are children or people around you that are being assaulted, abused, or even kept in captivity without you even realizing it. And so I'm sure we can all think of somebody in our life that we found out was a pedophile, okay? But our typical, from previous generations, our usual response was to keep that under wraps, kind of sweep it under the carpet. And there were a few of us that were brave enough to bring it to the authorities or to hold them accountable. But for the most part, most people won't say anything. And I don't know if that is still true today. I know that has been that way for a long time in the past. It's hard for me to say because I have learned that the way I behave and react to situations is not like the majority of people. But when I am reacting this way, I think that everybody would react that way, which I guess is a typical human behavior and a typical human way of thinking, is that people think like you. But that's not the case, obviously. So I don't know if I still think that the majority of people wouldn't do much because it seems so strange and so unusual that they don't really know what to do. And of course, unfortunately, with the prevalence of social media and how polarizing that can make a community and just make society in general, it definitely makes us feel like we are far away from it. So, for example, in a city, people are more likely to witness a crime being committed and to not do anything because they feel far away from the situation because there are so many people that are witnessing it as well. So many people are involved in the situation, right? Whereas I guess in a more like rural community, because there aren't that many people, there's more of like expectation to maintain that particular community to a certain standard, and therefore people are more likely to step in because they don't. Yeah, that's apparently like researched, and so it feels like that's what's also happening with this particular issue, is that when we see something or when we suspect something, we distance ourselves from it. And so as far as the state of the children, the state of all of the children that are involved still remains the same right now. However, the children that are involved in the higher elites, they are getting more attention right now, which is a good thing, which is what we want. Within that system, it seems to be slowing down because of the attention that it is getting right now. However, because of how systemic it is, these other children that we are not acknowledging right now, just as a society, that still remains the same. And that is why this is so important, and this is why this is happening. I know that a lot of people will have a perspective of, wow, this is just so terrible. I can't believe this. Like, when are people going to be held accountable? Why haven't there been any arrests? Well, the arrests are coming, sure, but that is that is, those are smaller goals. The greater goal is to expose just how great and systemic this problem actually is. I mean, we're not only talking about politicians and celebrities and the royal family and the families, right? Like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and all of those elite families, those bloodlines. But we're also talking about the police, your local police, the foster system, the like just any system that is involved with children. You can believe that they are also in this particular system. And I think one of the things that they found in the Epstein files was the company Lifetime or Life Touch or something like that. I don't remember what it was called, but it's basically the company that would take care of all of your students' school pictures. Like you would send your children to school on picture day. That company that did those pictures, that company is in the Epstein files. So we're talking school systems. Like anything that is involved with children has their hands in it. And there have been reports of children coming forward and saying that, my parents are a part of a satanic cult and they hold rituals at people's homes, and the sheriff is involved and the mayor is involved and the doctors are involved, and it's just one giant community of people that are participating in these rituals. Okay. And these people are everywhere. They seem to be more, and now I didn't channel any of this information or the information I just shared about the Epstein files, but from what I've heard, these tend to be more prevalent in the rural communities, but they are still in all the communities nonetheless. With me personally, I've had a family member that committed crimes against children and nothing was ever done. And then I also have like an extended family member who also committed crimes against children and nothing was ever done. And it's because of this, I have become estranged to certain family members, because it's the normal response is to just be quiet about it, because it just brings a bunch of shame, and it doesn't make, not only does it make the family look bad, obviously, but it also puts responsibility on the person who finds out. And that is not a responsibility that a lot of people are willing to accept. Because then, which we have to give credit to the people that come forward. We owe them so much credit, because could you imagine being on Epstein's island, right? And having to, like, being forced to do the things that they had to do, to accept the things that they received, and to also have this feeling of nobody will help you. It's a sense of helplessness. It's just despair. And then you leave feeling, or at least really believing, that nobody will be able to help you because these people are too powerful to take down. And nobody's going to care. There must be something going on with their own parents for their parents to not, worry about you going to an island, and I don't know. It's obviously it's case by case basis, so I shouldn't generalize like that. But just to go through that, and then to come back and to try to live a normal life, and then what do you do? you probably aren't going to want to go against them. You probably just want to just salvage whatever life you can for yourself and to just try to at least stay alive. And that is already a challenge in itself. And so the fact that these people, children, women, men, I'm sure, the fact that they decided to break out of that despair and to try to do something about it and to come forward and to try to make a change, we owe them so much. And, there are a lot of us that owe them an apology as well, because, a lot of people just don't believe them. I think they're just crying wolf because, of course, people of authority, why would they ever do such a terrible thing, right? So anyway, so just the fact that those people have come forward says a lot, because I think about the people in my life and the people that I have known to do bad things to children, and expecting my own family to raise the issue and hold them accountable, and it just not happening. It is I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. So anyway, I'm trying not to be too attached and too emotional about it, because I want to see this from an aerial perspective. It's just difficult when it comes to children, because it's hard not to be attached to that and to not be a little human and angry about it. So what are the things that we can actually do? And this part I did meditate on. I've said it before, and it's actually going to be probably a little frustrating to hear. But the thing that we are being asked to do is to heal ourselves. I know. Why would healing ourselves have a direct impact on the children that are being harmed? Well, I guess I had to bring up the example of family members, because it's basically just going along with the saying of hurt people hurt people. There are times where we are living our lives and doing things that we end up regretting, or that we don't necessarily like or aren't proud of, not because we enjoy doing it and not because we set out the intention of behaving this way or feeling this way, but it's because we are acting from a subconscious place, and our traumas and fears are the one that is driving our behavior. So for example, if someone were to be assaulted as a child and they were to never get help for healing that trauma, then there is a greater likelihood that they will grow up to commit the exact same crime towards a child that was committed towards them. And unfortunately, there are children that are born into these systems. And when I say systems, I mean like the darker rings that exist on the planet. There are some children that are literally intentionally born into these things for that purpose, for the purpose of assault and rituals. And so, what if there is a part of me that had some sort of trauma happen to me? I'm just using this as an example, but I don't know, something happened where I was attacked or got beat up by a group of people because I stuck my nose in their business. And I never dealt with that and I never healed it. So then years later, I'm in a situation where there is a child and it looks super suspicious with the type of people that this child is with. The child seems to be behaving in a strange way, and they just don't look like they're meant to be with this particular group of people. If I never healed that previous trauma, then I'm likely going to internalize that experience and to just learn that that was not a good thing for me to do, and therefore I'm just going to stay out of this situation. Okay, so that's just a very simplified example, but you get my drift. We go through things that change us, and they will change us no matter what. So is it going to change you for the better or for the worse? That is where healing comes in, because we can take all of the bad things that have ever happened to us, all of the traumas, and we can turn it into something meaningful. We can turn it into something that makes us better and therefore ends up making the world a better place. And if you could imagine, and I know that it sounds so, it doesn't sound like it would make an impact because it's just you doing the work on yourself, right? But could you imagine if all the billions of people on the planet did that kind of work? How quickly we would shift into a higher frequency? That is the point of all of this coming out. Now we are existing in truth. And the truth, I've been watching Ted Lasso with my partner, and I love this saying, it's from the psychologist in there. It's a cute show. She says, the truth will set you free, but first it's gonna piss you off. And that could not be more true. Yeah, this information is pissing us all off. It's pissing me off, that's for sure. But it's setting us free. And more importantly, it's setting the children free. So we have to heal ourselves. We have to heal our traumas. And if you want to take it another step further, you can heal traumas from your past lives. I believe in past lives. I have done past life regressions on myself, and I have had a great benefit from it. If you ever wonder if you have an irrational fear for some reason, or you just keep experiencing the same karma, the same lessons, the same situations over and over again, and you can't pinpoint it to anything that's happened to you in this lifetime, then you should definitely try exploring some of your past lives. And what's so cool about past lives is that it's a very quantum experience, to the point of you don't necessarily have to have experienced a particular lifetime. You can actually tap into other people's lifetimes. So it's like when you're in this lifetime and you watch somebody go through something, you can learn a lesson from their experience. And it's the same thing with past life regressions. Dolores Cannon calls it imprinting, or an imprinted past life, because she was a hypnotherapist and found that she could regress people to past lives, and she took a very scientific method with her approach and really fact-checked some of the historical events that these people were reporting, and it turned out to be very accurate. But she also found that a lot of her clients experienced the same lifetimes. So there were multiple people that experienced the lifetime of Jesus Christ. And so what she found, or what she theorized, is that there are people that are experiencing imprinted lifetimes. So they can experience the lifetime without actually going through the lifetime. But that proves the quantum tapestry of how reality in the universe works. This is the law of one. This is how we're all connected, and that is just one way of experiencing that connection. And so if your soul has experienced a type of trauma, or it's going through a type of karma, then, exploring your past life or exploring a lifetime that can be helpful for you and your current situation could be very beneficial. Another way to help the children, and this is going to be very obvious, but is to speak to your own children about that subject. Of course, you have to approach it very delicately and very age appropriate, because it needs to be educational and informative without it being traumatizing to them just from talking about it. I like to think of it as dropping seeds. So I don't have any children, but this is how I would imagine that I would speak to my children. When I was going through my awakening and I wanted to, and I still currently do it to this day, like if I feel like someone is sort of open to some of the information that I have gathered or the things that I experience, but I don't know if they're exactly ready for it, I'll drop little seeds, of information, and just let it simmer on them, and just see how they react. And if they are receptive to it, then I will, drop another seed at another time or something like that. And what I found is that when I would do this, they would come back to me maybe months later and be like, hey, you remember that thing that you told me? Well, this is the thing that I experienced. It's so crazy, right? And of course, so it's just a way of gauging just how receptive they are. So I think that this would be a good approach for children, because unfortunately, these things are happening to very young children. And we have to find some way to inform them without it being too much for them, because we don't want them to be scared of the world, but we just want to empower them with just a little bit of knowledge. And I think that there are child behavior specialists and things like that that would be able to guide all of us through that more than I possibly could. But of course, in order to be able to successfully do that in a very healthy way, you have to be healthy and balanced within yourself. So it just still comes back to healing your own issues, because unfortunately, the first recipients of the collateral damage of our own unhealed traumas is going to be our children. Another way that we can help the children that are currently experiencing the darker things right now is to straight up send them love and to pray. And you can be creative on however you want to do this. Sometimes I will ask Archangel Michael to go to all of the children that are experiencing, physical or sexual assault against their will, and to, talk to them and tell them that everything will be okay, that this is something that you are experiencing, but it is not who you are. It is not going to shape who you are. And it's funny because when I was meditating on this particular information, I was asking how free will worked with this, right? So like, how do I know that I'm not encroaching on someone's free will by sending them loving energy or sending them prayers and things like that? Because it's almost like cursing someone or putting a spell on someone, right? When you do that, you are disrespecting their free will. So of course that would be bad karma for me if I did that. But would that be bad karma if it was for a positive thing? And what was explained to me is that the souls of these children, zooming out from an even higher point of view, the souls were contracted and therefore agreed to have these experiences. And because on that level they agreed to these experiences, they have sort of given consent to allowing an outside force to assist them with getting through that experience, if that makes sense. And of course, to most people, that would sound absolutely insane. Like, why would anybody consent to anything like that? But, it's going to make me emotional. The children that are involved a lot of them are actually more advanced souls. And this was always contracted to be part of a greater awakening for humanity on planet Earth. And some of the more advanced souls were the ones that were willing to volunteer to be put in those situations in human form so that it can be exposed so that the rest of humanity can wake up. So it's like COVID, right? When we went through COVID, there were a lot of people to wake up. But could have these people awakened without going through COVID? Probably not. If it wasn't COVID, it was going to be something else. And so COVID created a mass awakening among humanity. So it was a bad thing for us to go through because what happened? People had to die. They had to die from getting COVID. They had to die from getting vaccinated. Families were split apart. The medical system lost, people lost trust in that. Just a whole mess had to happen for these people to finally wake up. And so now we're at a place where the crimes against children are being illuminated, but the terrible and darker things were happening and had to have happened and been exposed for another group of humanity to wake up. And so talk about brave and courageous souls to be willing to pick such an awful lifetime to experience. So anyway, that was a long drawn out explanation, but so needless to say, sending them love and prayers literally can help that soul. I am an energy worker, so I know that when I send energy, people receive it. They tell me, they share their experience and whatever, and I can feel it too. So it does work. And energy workers are not special. We just decided to get trained in that particular modality of energy. But energy is energy. Prayers are energy. And so if you were to sit and take the time to think about all of the children that are suffering right now, and what I personally like to do is I like to think of a person or an animal or something that brings me a lot of joy and that I just deeply love. And I think about hugging this person, or I'll think about the time that Jesus hugged me for the first time and just how powerful that was. I think about that energy that comes from my chest, and I send little fractals of myself to all of the children that are going through that right now. And I sit there and I hug them through those darker experiences. And I flood their heart with that loving energy. And again, I just remind them, like, in the end, this will not be for nothing. And I actually had a revelation within my own life and experience when I did this, because I was doing that, and I'm just like hugging them and, you know, whatever, I'm just doing this. And I'm sending that energy to the soul, because the soul can get traumatized and damaged and then be stuck in a karmic loop. And so it's the soul that I'm, you know, trying to send love to. And what flashed was a situation that I was in when I was very young. I came very close to being assaulted by a man. Very, very close. But then something happened. Like the man just didn't do it, just stopped. And I always wondered what happened. And I always imagined, because I believed in angels, like I just always believed in angels. I believed in angels before I believed in God. I always felt like there was an angel that stopped him, or just did something, just intervened. But I never really, later on, I learned that there was an angel that actually intervened in that. And I was so grateful, of course. And I was like, oh, that was like my guardian angel. But then when I was doing this, I saw myself in like a third person, as if I was just participating, like I was just in the room, and just kind of like stood there with like my wings like puffed out, and just became like a barrier. And I was just looking at like my little girl self, just like smiling at her. And then that's when I realized that while I was doing this work trying to help these children, I actually had a quantum experience of going back in the past and helping myself. And so that angel that I experienced was actually me. And so and that's just how quantum mechanics works when it comes to our own souls. Like, we can have parallel versions of ourselves, we can have past versions, future versions. Because we're all just one thing. So I thought that was really cool. That was a really profound experience for me. And so that's just like another aspect of being able to heal ourselves. And so that is another thing that I do recommend, is to heal your inner child. And you can do that by going into the past and rewriting what happens. And it's funny because I was on Instagram yesterday, and somebody has been making these AI videos of Disney movies where the traumatizing part never happens, and instead it's something else. So the one that I saw was The Lion King, where Scar is holding on to Mufasa over the antelope, and he's getting ready to let him go, but instead he pulls him back up, and then they all end up wearing crowns and whatever. And the caption was, "My childhood was healed through AI," or something like that. So it's literally like that, except you do it to your own past experiences and you just correct it within your own psyche. Oh, man, this was a heavy one. And I know that the information that I shared with you probably isn't groundbreaking. It's nothing you probably haven't heard of before. But I guess it just needed to be repeated and reiterated. And maybe there's just not enough of us that are doing that kind of work. I don't really know, but it seemed really important that I share the importance of healing ourselves and how that's going to have a direct impact on the children. And that is how we, as people that are far away from that situation, can actually do something about it. But then we may come across a situation where we aren't so far away from it and we are directly in it. And we get to make a choice in that moment of how we are going to act. And of course, all of this needs to be done with discernment and with wisdom and integrity and honesty. And so every situation is different. I'm not saying that you should just go, gung-ho, vigilante, and do whatever it is. Some of us might be called in real time to act as an angel in human form for a child that they meet. And you will be of greater assistance if you have done the work on yourself first. We have to be the hero in our own lives before we can be the hero in other people's lives. But rest assured, humanity is shifting into a higher frequency. And we just need to go through a little bit of darkness to get there first. I hope you liked the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Consider subscribing, and I will see you next time. Bye.